Kevin here from DIYDork.com. Today I want to show you how I turn this old beat up dresser into a kitchen island, so check this out. Alright, so here is the dresser I'm working with today. I picked it up at a thrift store for 15 bucks. The original plan was just to sand it real quick, do a quick paint job, and flip it as is. It wasn't going to be for a video or nothing like that, just a little side project. But once I brought it home, I realized it was a little rougher than I thought. So this is actually the perfect piece to turn into a kitchen island. I mean, it's not very deep, it's not that wide, it's definitely pretty short. So if I could raise it a few inches and put a new top on there and put some casters on it, it'd be a really awesome little island. So that's the plan. The top, I like how it looks, but I'm actually just going to cover it with some new wood. It'll be a butcher block style top. It's not going to be a real butcher block. I'm just going to use some 2x6 pieces of pine, join them together. It'll be about 4 of them wide, and I'll make it about 2 inches wider than this top all the way around. So it's just a little bit bigger top. I'll finish it so that's food safe, but the idea is not really to directly chop on top of it. It's really more for just extra storage in the kitchen, set bowls on there, things like that. But it'll look pretty cool, all right? So the other thing I want to do is pull out these bottom true drawers. Now this one was missing a handle, but as you can see, it's actually missing an entire wedge right here. An entire chunk of wood's gone. It has a curve to it. It's a little too difficult to try to fix that, so I'm actually just going to pull these out and they're going to become open shelves. All right, so I'll just remove this little piece right here, put in some wood, maybe cover the sides as well. They'll be really nice open shelves. I'll also pop out that back piece so they're completely open. Now, I will keep these drawers up here. They're in nice shape. I really like that cool detail they have on them. I even like the hardware. So the hardware, I'm gonna get the paint off by boiling them. I have a really cool video. It shows how to use a Crockpot to remove paint. And then I'll probably paint them silver. I mean, I know they're brass, but I don't think brass is gonna match with the rest of everything I'm doing. So they'll probably be silver. The faces will just be painted like the rest of the body, which I'll probably go with the white to keep it simple. And then the other thing I got to do to help raise it up is get rid of these old legs. Someone added these little homemade legs. They're really wobbly. I don't like them. So I actually have some casters that are actually a little bit bigger than those legs, so that will raise it a little bit. And I'm going to build a 2x4 base mounted underneath, so that will raise it the additional couple inches to make it the height of a little kitchen island. So it should turn out pretty cool. So let me get started. Alright, so I got it all stripped down, got the legs taken off, the back piece I got knocked out real easy, and then I have those little strips taken off. So now what I'm going to start doing is measuring and chopping down this 2x4 to build my little perimeter. So I'll probably go ahead and miter the corners and then also use my little Craig jig so that I can actually screw it down to the wood here. So I'll get that built next. Alright, so I got that riser base built and mounted on real nice. Looks pretty good. The screw head holes here I'll have to fill in with a little Bondo and maybe even go over the corners here just to fill in a little bit of a gap that's on the seams. Just sand them smooth and I'll be able to prime it and it'll be ready to go. So now what I want to do is mount my casters. Now these are not really the casters I would normally use. The ones I normally get have that little square plate on top where you put in 4 screws, real simple. And I'd probably just mount another board across here and that way my little square would mount there. But I already had these. They're free because I bought them like 12 years ago and used them on a bed frame I built back then. And what they were is I mounted them like this. Now the reason I have the metal plate is I have no idea why I bought this style of caster. I'm thinking they might have been in a clearance section or something, so I built a little bracket to make them work. So anyway, if I mount them like this, I think the wheels are going to be way too inset. It might tip over. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them all the way to the corner. So I'll just have to cut my metal down. So I'll have to get out my little cutting blade and chop these down and then drill some new holes, and then I can just mount them right to the board and they'll be ready to go. Then I can start working on filling my little shelf sections with wood. Alright, so now I have all the modifications built out and this thing is ready for some paint. So I have the riser base all finished. I got the holes filled in nice and smooth. The corners are smoothed out. I sanded it and then I sealed in all that raw wood with some spray primer because I didn't have any oil-based primer on hand. Same thing here. I put some slats on the back side of those top drawers so that it'll kind of blend in because I'm going to use slats for the shelf faces here, which will look pretty cool. But anyway, I got it sealed in, spray primer, and then I did the same thing on the sides because when I was sanding it to smooth it out, it went through the paint a few sections down to raw wood. And with that regular water-based color blocking primer I have, it will, wood sections will bleed through, especially if you're painting it really light color like white. So I wanted to seal it, and like I said, I didn't have oil-based primer, so I went ahead and used a spray primer. And then, of course, I ran out of white spray primer, so I had to use the gray. So now it's going to take a few more coats to kind of cover up this gray with my regular primer. Then I'll get it painted, and then I can start moving on to slatting out the shelves and building the top and mounting the wheels, and this thing should be good to go after that. So let me go ahead and prime and paint it right now. Alright, so I got everything primed and painted. It looks real nice now. It's ready to go. I did the same thing on the two drawers I'm keeping. I sanded those, primed and painted them, and they're outside drying right now. I also took the handles off and I dropped them in the Crockpot to strip the paint off so that they'll be nice and smooth for some new aluminum silver paint in a little bit. So right now what I'm doing is beefing up the shelves. They just have masonite in there right now. I wouldn't trust that for any kind of strength for anything in the kitchen. So I want to beef them up and make them look nicer. So what I'm going to do is cover them in these slats. So what I did is I took a 2x4 and I ran it through my table saw until I made a bunch of these 1/4 inch wide slats. And they look pretty good. They do have a little bit of texture to them, so I'll have to sand them smooth and kind of ran off the edges to prevent splinters, but they'll look real nice. So I just got to chop them to the exact width of the shelf here so they fit real nice, and then I'll nail them on real quick. I've decided to wrap them up the sides as well, so it's a nice continuous look. And then I just got to build some cover pieces here that I'll paint the same gloss white as the rest of this, so that it's just a nice continuous finished look. I'll do the same thing on the shelves here, so it looks real nice. Then all I have to do is mount the wheels and then start working on that top built out of 2x6s, and it should look real nice when it's finished. Alright, so I got the whole thing trimmed out. It's looking really nice now. As you can see, I did white painted trim on the outside, but I kept the middle one there wood, so it kind of looks like a wood box was inserted into it or something like that. Make it look kind of interesting. So anyway, all those nail holes I filled in with a little bit of spackling here. I'm letting it dry. I need to touch them up real quick. But what I'm going to start doing next is working on the top. So I'm just going to cover the whole top with I told you before, it was sort of a butcher block style table. It's not a real butcher block, but it'll be kind of like it. But I'm using these 2x6s. So these, I just bought some 6-footers right here. So I'm going to chop them in half at 3 foot and then join them together. But because these have a little bit of a rounded edge, what I'm going to do is after I chop them down to size, there'll be 4 of them in a row. So the middle 2, I'll trim that little bit of rounded edge off of both of them. And then the outer boards, I will trim that rounded edge off of the one that faces the inside, but the outside I'll go ahead and keep rounded so it has kind of a nice face to it. Then I'll join it with some Kreg screws and some glue just to hold it together real nice. Hopefully it'll be nice and flat. And then I'll sand it real nice and smooth, get a super nice surface on there, get rid of all that printing, any rough areas, all that, just get it really nice and smooth out. And then I'm gonna make it food safe with some mineral oil. So I'll start doing that next. Alright, so I got my top put together. It turned out really nice using those 2x6s. And I said that they were 6 feet long. I was going to chop them in half, but I had a couple of bad ends, so they ended up being a little bit longer than 35 inches instead. And also I said I was going to keep this edge and this edge the same, but all the others I was going to run through my table saw, and that was to get this nice flat joint like you see right now. And that worked out great. And then I joined it all together last night with glue, and then the pocket holes and some pocket screws made it nice and tight. The one issue I did have is that the whole thing kind of bowed a little bit. I think that's because all of my end grains face the same direction. So I don't think it'll quite show in video, but my end grains all curve this way. And one of the tricks to keep it nice and flat is to alternate them. So you'd have one curve this way, and then that one would go this way, and then vice versa. All right. But as you can see, this is the bottom side, and it's really rough. I wanted that to face away so that the top side was nice and smooth. So that's just how they turned out. So to take care of that, when I was letting that glue dry last night, I actually clamped all four corners down to this little metal table I have to keep it nice and flat. And then when I took off those clamps this morning, it had flattened out and it worked out great. So that's a nice quick fix in case you can't mount your boards the way that you really want to. All right, so now what I did is I sanded it, and I used 80 grit and smoothed the whole thing over. I knocked over all the rough edges. I rounded over the corners here. And then also these joints, some of them were, one was just a little higher than the others. So 80 grit really tore through that and made them all nice and flush. And then I went over the whole thing again with 220, so it's super nice and smooth and it's ready for finish. So that's what I'll show to you next. All right, so to add a finish to the top and make it food grade, food safe, what I want to do is, instead of getting a super nice expensive butcher block oil or something like that from the hardware store, I want to try something a little different and go old school and super affordable with mineral oil. I picked this up at Walmart. Instead of finding it in the wood finishing section, this is actually from the medicine section. As you can see, it's a laxative, so you're supposed to take this overnight. If you're constipated, the next day you're ready to go. But what's cool about this is it's just oil. There's no smell to it, there's no color. It's just a great thing you can put on wood that's food safe, and it keeps moisture in the wood, but it doesn't really change color or anything like that. So really inexpensive. This whole bottle is only like $2, so it'll work great. So I'm gonna go ahead and oil the bottom of this, probably even the sides a little bit, and then as it's drying, I'm gonna prep my island to mount it. So on the island top, in each corner, I'm gonna drill a 1/2-inch hole, pretty good size hole in it. All right, so then once the oil dries on here, I'll take my island top, or my island over there, and I'll flip it upside down, lay it on the top here, line it up so it's ready to mount, and then I'm gonna mount it with 1.5-inch screws and these big fat washers. All right, it's very similar if you've seen my butcher block countertop video. It's the way I mounted those to our counters. And anyway, that washer will keep the screw from going through that big 1/2-inch hole, but the 1/2-inch hole will leave room for the screw to move a little bit in case the wood wants to expand or contract as the seasons change. It'll keep it from splitting or tearing up the island. So anyway, I'll go ahead and oil this up, get that mounted, flip it over, oil the top, and then all I have to do is mount the wheels and this thing is ready to go. All right, here it is all finished. Turned out really cool. The final touch added to the sides, I felt that it needed a towel rack just to add a little more function, and the sides were looking a little bare, so I think it looks a lot better now. And those are actually drawer pulls. I found at Menards for only $2.99 each, really cheap, and they look cool, so I added them to the sides. So anyway, it's all finished now. Got the really big casters underneath. It rolls around real easy, plus it helps raise it up a bit. Then I have that riser base built out of the 2x4. And then a nice thick top, so now it is the perfect working height for the kitchen. And of course the top is all smooth now after I knocked down all the edges with the 80 and then smoothed it out with the 220 and then oiled it up, and it worked great. That oil also works great on cutting boards for the same reasons you would do it for a top like this. And then of course if it ever gets scratched or dented or stained, you could easily just sand that away and then re-oil it and it's good to go. And of course we have the open shelves here. A lot of storage, and they look really cool, almost like inside of a sauna or something. It's kind of cool. And of course the drawers up here are still functional. I just painted them white, and they can add whatever they want into their utensils, or who knows whatever anyone wants to add to it. I'll roll around to the back so you can kind of see what it looks like. And it turned out cool too. Very similar, just the trim's a little bit wider, and then of course up here I just have those slats just for a backing. And anyway, that turned out really cool too. So that's how I turned this little old beat up $15 dresser into a really cool kitchen island. Almost gonna hate to see this one go, but I know whoever picks it up from me is gonna really like it. This thing turned out really cool. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. I really appreciate that. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. That really helps get it out in front of other people that might like to check it out too. And if you haven't subscribed, be sure to do that to keep up with more videos. And if you want to see some other projects I have some here on the screen and down in the description below as well.